However, if you then divide east-west and north-south, the positioning of the Sphinx in relation to the spiral and the pyramids, that ratio of this length to this length is E divided by pi, which is the key constant ratio of Cydonia. The Sphinx is not oriented at random in relation to the pyramids, but according to the key message of Cydonia itself. The basic model of the Sphinx is this lion-man interface. Two creatures. Now, why those two creatures? Why the body of a lion and the head of a man? So with that as prelude, and the idea that maybe somebody who knew a little bit more than the Old Kingdom Egyptians might have had a hand in this spot on Earth, we began to look seriously at the possibility that there was more than a passing connection between this awesome structure and the monuments of Mars. In particular, the actual image of this thing as the embodiment of these two creatures, feline and hominid. And that's when we began to do a series of enhancements of the face on Mars, which Vladimir Ivinsky, can be credited with somewhat independent discovery and invention. And in his Soviet Life article for August 1984, he called this the Martian Sphinx. Well, take a look. As you progress through the various imaging enhancements, this is high sun now, all right, you can very definitely see that this guy has a simian proto-human look. What you then do is you take the halves, all right, and you fold over. All right, let me go back one. You fold over this half, all right, onto that half so that you can actually get a mirror image, and it's very definitely primitive hominid. It's not Marilyn Monroe or Paul Newman. Why is it primitive hominid? Might it have something to do with how old we think this thing might be? Circa 500,000 years. Hold that thought. Then what we do is we go back to the original, all right, and we then take the right half and we do the same thing. We fold that over and we get this. And I'm really gratified by your response, guys. That's exactly my feeling. The hair on the back of my neck. When I realized that what we were looking at in the monument of Mars, the face on Mars, was the fusion of the hominid and the feline, the fusion of this persona. From this, I realized that what we were seeing was, of course, sphinxes, literal embodiments of sphinxes on two worlds linked by the fundamental constants of Cydonia over and over and over again. Science is driven by the numbers. In fact, a noted astronomer some years ago, Sir Arthur Eddington, once remarked, "Gentlemen, you do not have a science unless you can express it in numbers." With the discovery of the repeating fundamental E-pi connections now, firmly linking Cydonia and Giza, those numbers are telling us something profound. No longer is a terrestrial connection dismissible as pure projection. In fact, the discovery of the feline nature of the Martian Sphinx raises such implications that we must consider seriously a re-examination of our history in light of Cydonia itself. But independent of our own research, for many years it turns out that others have been pursuing numbers equally intriguing. For instance, there's a gentleman named Carl Monk, an ex-Air Force engineer who for 10 years has been working on something he calls the global grid, or the global matrix. Carl's work, which fills literally rooms of handwritten pages, because he began before the era of cheap calculators, now turns out to be intimately connected with our own work and the monuments of Mars. Carl's work, which came to my attention when he wrote a letter some months ago, and then subsequently joined the Mars mission team, is contained in this book, this volume, which, in fact, contains almost everything you'd want to know about the grid, and don't probably have time to read. 10 years of work. The bottom line is this. This grid, which now apparently encompasses this planet, is specifically connected with the tetrahedral mathematics we've decoded in the monuments of Mars. And it connects such extraordinarily interesting and diverse places on this planet as the Giza Plateau, the fabled ruins at Stonehenge, the sites at Avebury, Silbury, then Guatemala, the Indian mounds of North America, including things like Serpent Mound, and finally, an isolated plateau in the middle of South America, high up in the Andes, 13,000 feet, called Marcohuasi. All of these, and by no means is this list comprehensive or exhaustive, all of these now seem to be connected by a system that is both elegant and profound and is rooted in the mathematics that we have discovered at Cydonia. What you probably have to do is to look at this as you would look at a hologram. How many have seen a hologram? It is not a photograph, it is a plate, a photographic plate sometimes, that records on it an interference pattern that is a mathematical transform of the image of which it is taken. And the neat thing about holograms is the whole thing stores the information. But if I take a scissors and I cut the hologram so I get only a tiny piece, and I shine a laser through that, even a piece of the hologram will allow us to reconstruct all the information of the original. So holograms are very well adapted for storing information against entropy where there will be degradation with time. What we seem to be seeing in this global grid, this extraordinary system that Carl worked at independently long before he'd ever heard the words tetrahedral geometry or Cydonia, what we seem to be seeing is a grid, a holographic grid that has structures spotted around the Earth, and there are all kinds of interesting structures, which in fact show us the holographic memory of all different cultures to memorialize the same important few things. And those few things turn out to be E and pi and tetrahedral geometry and, by inference, hyperdimensional physics and an implied technology. And that is an extraordinary statement to be able to make. You're flying up something called the Avenue of the Dead, 30 miles northeast of Mexico City, at a place called Teotihuacan, which to the native Mayans was simply referred to as the place, the dwelling place of the gods. You're flying up the steps of the Pyramid of the Moon, which sits at the end of this long, several-mile-long avenue. Look at this level here, all right? That angle there is equal to 19.5 degrees. And you turn around here and you look down this avenue, you'll notice that there's another pyramid over here, the Pyramid of the Sun. Its fourth level memorializes 19.69 degrees, which is its latitude on Earth. And that avenue, this long avenue, is off due north by 15.5 degrees. 15.49193338 degrees, which is the mean of all the archaeological estimates of the Avenue of the Way of the Dead at Teotihuacan. Multiply it by pi. That's the elegance of this, all right? Simple pi. And what do we get? 48.66934411, which is the radius of Stonehenge.